2023 was the worst year on jobs. There was almost no jobs. A big jump in 2025, 11 to 12,000 jobs opened up just in AI. So that's the first trend. Second biggest trend that surprised me as well, that OpenAI is continuously losing share to their rivals in Anthropic and Gemini. So OpenAI is getting squeezed from both directions, research from OpenAI and obviously research from Anthropic, but an execution engine that takes on enterprise. Now I want to introduce my friend David. He worked on a lot of startups, which actually made big. And he's been teaching for 8 years. He has 4,000 plus students. And he has helped a lot of product managers.
And this is what I've noticed, right? From Australia, it's a very different market to the market in the US. So the dynamics in that market can really break or make your product. And as a PM, you have to understand this. And this is where bulk of the product sense comes from. For market research specific, I use Perplexity to do that because it's got the latest news and it's just really good at analyzing market sizing.
This is what you do in the products also. You build a product which gives you insight and then you build a judge with the other provider. So your product is on ChatGPT, your judge is on Perplexity. Then you get two perspectives and then whatever matches, at least you can have the lowest hanging fruit.
So as you're prompting the AI, you have to understand the emotional needs, why they're buying it versus the functional needs.
Good morning. Today we have a lot to cover. Obviously, I have a guest speaker as well today. David is here. I will introduce David in a second. But before we go, David, I have a new format for the new year where I just talk about what top of mind for me and show you a few trends. By the way, if you don't know me, I'm Mahesh. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you send a request, I will still accept it. My goal is to help you get into AI PM world. I've been in AI for good 10 years and I have built libraries which are used to train large models by OpenAI. I worked in Facebook, PyTorch research. Then I worked in Bedrock for AWS, where we actually first time bootstrapped how to serve these large language models. Then I worked in Google to build the first agents that were running back office. And I have my own startup right now where I'm trying to see how can everybody use AI agents to do back office work like legal, accounting, finance, and compliance. So that's me. This is my LinkedIn. If you want to just follow along, then you can follow along. How this call goes, this call, you turn on your cameras so that we can all see you. When we see you, we feel the energy you have and you feel the energy we have. It makes us closer to I know all of us want to do live sessions, but it's almost impossible to do live sessions at this scale. So it's always good way for you to contribute to this community. If you want this session or future sessions where you need to be invited, just scan this code, fill this form. We will make sure that you're invited to all future free talks. We do these talks every Friday to make sure that you're learning, I will just praise myself, from the best without worrying about cost. We have done these sessions all year long. The goal is to make sure that more people can get access to the kind of things which only few people have access to today. So that's our goal. Most of the people here have also done a course with me, but you need not to do the course. Obviously, it will make much more sense and you will get more out of it. Okay, few things. I want to just talk about two trends and then I will hand it over to David. Two trends. One is, if you see this graph, I think we got it from Akash. Akash is a influencer. He posted this data where he showed this 2023 was the worst year on jobs. There was almost no jobs because everybody was firing in 2023. So that's the low point. If you take the low point and grow almost like 15,000 to 16, I would say 17,000. And that's where the first 4,000 jobs are coming in AI. A big jump in 2025, 11 to 12,000 jobs opened up just in AI. And they have I think this should go even higher. But this is the slope of this line tells you that there are more jobs in AI than normal PM jobs out there. And that is going to grow this year as well. So that's the first trend. Second biggest trend that surprised me as well, that OpenAI is continuously losing share to their rivals in Anthropic and Gemini. Gemini first time is getting into double digit and the market is getting even. So that's the other trend. Why? Because of focus. You have seen a focus execution and a product first thinking with Anthropic. where they went and they chose the territory. They said, we're going to play in enterprises. We're going to developer is our ecosystem. First, they release MCP, then they release Claude Code. And now just Claude Code requires you to have a $20 subscription. And that's showing a big chart or big gain in their revenues. So this trend that we need more product people to make sure even the largest player who have the advantage without, if research leads them or product doesn't read them, or you go and just spread so thin that you can't focus anywhere. I think that was OpenAI. One mistake they did is that they went all the directions. They were trying to be consultants. I saw the $10,000 consulting offering or 100K. They were saying, we will go and build AI for you inside your company. And I was like, yeah, best of luck doing that. And then they had consumer products. They went into hardware. Then they said, let's do advertisement also. So they hired Fujimoto and tried to get into advertisement directly to Google. But at the same time, they wanted to build models. And at the same time, they wanted to crack enterprise. Anthropic just said, hey, we're going to go for enterprise, developer. We are a platform company. We are just competing with current platform players. Why people shift to our platform? Because we are AI first. That's it. Single strategy, enterprise. No multimodal, no offering in vision, no offering in consumer space, just targeted execution. First, a protocol, MCP, earlier last year, then Claude Code, now Cowork. And Gemini, I think just it takes time to Google to catch up. But when Google catch up, they have a vertical stack of TPUs, then DeepMind research, and then their own consumer base that can give them huge feedback to iterate and run faster. If you saw Gemini 3 Pro benchmarks, it beat pretty much GPT 5.2 on all the aspects that people cared about, whether it was tool calling, whether it was reasoning, whether it was long execution of tasks, it just performed better. So OpenAI is getting squeezed from both direction, research from OpenAI, and obviously research from Anthropic, but an execution engine that takes on enterprise. So that's the two market trends I wanted to share about. Now I want to introduce my friend David. David is here, talk to our community. David has been 18 years here. He have worked, which I have not done, and I feel envy of him, is that he worked on a lot of startups which actually made big, like Linktree, Kajabi. These are all the platforms which allow this new gig economy to flourish and build communities. I think that's what he did. He took a big career leap from Australia to US. So people in Australia can see one sample that you can actually switch time zones just like that. Uh, and he's been teaching for 8 years. He has 4,000 plus students, and he has helped a lot of product managers. So today, what we will be covering is more 101. So what we did is we did this. We are doing right now is we have this course that we are going after, which is our Maven offering on how to do crack AI PM interviews. This is the first time I'm just doing that. So, but I'm focused more on AI, not on anything else. And what I saw there was that, hey, we are doing this course. And in this course, we are teaching you how can you use Claude Code and other tools. So one, making you builders. But second, we are also preparing you for interviews. And here we are giving you guides on what to expect an AI PM technical interview, how to crack AI product sense interviews, and helping you with the CVs, what to expect in the interviews with questions and how to solve them with frameworks, especially AI. And one gap I found was that people said, Mahesh, AI interview comes later. Can we understand product sense? And that's where I got David. I was like, okay, maybe I could talk about product sense, but then it won't be fun because I'm talking about AI product sense a lot. Let's get somebody who has done a lot of teaching in AI product sense. And that's what our friend David's core competency is. Today, he will also bring AI flavor to it, but he will be talking about product thinking, how to use product thinking, plus AI workflows to get ready or do your job faster. He will be sharing his own prompt libraries and walk you through how he does market research, how he does customer research in the new AI era. And then he will talk about how to measure success across customer journey. His tips and tricks, my goal is with his tips and tricks, you should be able to crack any product sense interview and use AI better. With that said, I want to give this to David. David, I give you 4 minutes extra. If you're gonna come, if you like this session, of course, I will be doing another session next Friday. You can enroll in this one. This is how to build great taste AI first designs. This is like how to crack AI design interviews or AI product design interviews. And I have built a lot of templates and frameworks because of the course. And I would love to share it with this community. That's coming next week. Please enroll. With all that said, all yours, David. David will share his screen and take us forward. David, feel free to introduce yourself and welcome again. And thank you for doing this
You.
for us.
Oh, pleasure, Mahesh. Thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, the accent's exported from Australia. I've been in the US for a year and a half now, and I was very lucky to bump into Mahesh. So thank you for giving me the platform to share what I've learned with people. Yeah, and the AI course is something I'm interested into. I do see like, as the senior leaders are getting disrupted from the roles, that moving into senior IC roles and moving into senior AI leadership roles. So the course that you sharing with us is something I probably would do as well. So thank you. I'll share my screen. I am kind of old school, so I do things on PowerPoint. But I pulled together a few slides to share with us in terms of product thinking, because I've started to realize that, as execution becomes easier, in terms of writing the code and generating the actual solution, it's actually shifted, gave us people a lot of time to think about what to build. And product thinking is now becoming more important. And you can see this like product thinking, product sense, product intuition, all these things come and go over the years. But I want to get to the cracks of it. I only have 45 minutes today, so I just wanted to take you guys through the essence of what product thinking is. And it's actually, it comes down to these like 5 things. And you can read different books. They all have different framework, different tools, but if you distill everything you read, it just touches these 5 things. So it starts off with understanding the product lifecycle, right? Which is the process. And a lot of you guys are probably familiar with this. And Mahesh has got a very senior community. So I'm not going to touch on product lifecycle. You know this, but starts off the product lifecycle because that tells you like what to do at the right time. But then it gets deeper in the next part, which is market dynamics, right? And this is what I've noticed, right? From Australia, it's a very different market to the market in the US. So the dynamics in that market can really break or make your product. And as a PM, you have to understand this. And this is where bulk of the product sense comes from. And then you need to understand the customers in that market, right? So you got to sell to the culture, sell to the behavior, sell to the understanding of the customer. Make sense? And once these 3 things are done really well, then we can get into product solution, and then we can go to market. And that's basically the 5 steps. Nowadays, we do it a lot faster with AI, but it does not mean that we skip these steps. Like back in the days, we could have done market dynamics in like a week or 2 with some researcher. I got to do some customer pain point research. That would take weeks. But nowadays, it takes you hours to do all the fundamental research, and then you can build on top of that assumption. So the whole process goes much faster. And because of the process, the top is the product direction. The bottom part is the product solution. And you got to do both things, right? Marty Kagan calls it discovery, delivery. Some people call it like, product sense and product execution. It just depends on what you're thinking about. But these are the 2 tracks. And I want to focus on these 2 things today because I've got so much to cover. So I'll go deep in these 2 areas. And yeah, if you want to learn anything else, just reach out to Mahesh. Happy to share some more of these other insights with you guys as well. And why I want to focus on these 2 things is because of I have made so many mistakes in my years of building bad products. I've built a product within a bank that didn't get any users at all, and it flopped and it wasted like $100 million. And I've learned this big lesson here. The biggest lesson is from this guy, Mark Andreessen. He says, in a great market, a market with a lot of potential customers, the market pulls the product out of the startup or out of the company or / product team. Right. And this works both external face product, like customer products, as well as internal products, right? So if you're building a platform product for internal users, you have people that is demanding for for types of tools and services that they don't have to buy somewhere else, right? So that's the market. So, and external is very easy. What's the TAM? And I felt this firsthand when I was working at Linktree. The market, because we're in a creator market, creator economy market. The market was pulling out all these products, right? QR codes with like link trees, collecting your contacts and grow your audience. And then you get into like monetizing your audience with shops, right? With integrations, affiliates. And you have things like, Instagram Reels, et cetera, right? So all these two products were being pulled out of the market. And why? It's because the creator economy was growing. It was a massive market. And in 2.5 years, we scaled from 3 million users to 50 million plus users now in about 3 years. And the customers were asking all these features that they wanted because they couldn't keep up to date with the expanding market. And then, we have to say no to like multi-million dollar ideas to chase these big unicorn ideas, the big billion-dollar ideas, because the market is big. And that's why it's important to really focus on the market first. Product lifecycle, market, customer, right? And when you're in a big market, you get a lot of tailwinds. This is what I noticed at Linktree. Like every product we build, we get like a lot of users. And I'm sure Mahesh felt the same when he was working at Meta and Google, right? 100 million users, that's nothing, right? So you got to say no to those billion-dollar ideas and chase those $100 billion ideas. And that's the perspective that I want us to share. Because big market gives you high retention, gives you every new player that enters your market expands the market because there's no way for you to take the $100 billion market alone. And then it's a win-win for everybody. Small market, not so great, right? Copies, low retention, price wars. So I don't want to, that's basically the downward spiral. So this is why I want to focus this first session. The first topic I want you guys to take away, which is market dynamics. And I've got the process I'll take us through of how to do market dynamic research. And I'm going to jump into a prompt that I created for my own whenever I do market research. I want to share that with you, and I'll walk you through how that prompt works and what to think about. Because how Elon says, the biggest problem we have now is not answers, it's actually the right questions to ask, right? The prompt is the question to ask, and I'll walk you through that. But what's the point of doing this, by the way? It's because of, this question, is the juice worth the squeeze? That is it. It's much easier. You probably know this, right? It's easier to delete delete an idea from your PRD than it is to delete code from production, right? That's the whole point. Chase the big ideas. You want to see if you want to pivot, persevere, and stop. That is it. That's the point of market research. And there's 5 areas of market research, right? And I call this market dynamics. These are different things that can impact your product. In the AI world, you can do this much faster now, probably in hours rather than in weeks. So, you start with market sizing, understanding what the market size is. Understand the competition. That's the second part. Third is often sort of lost in the tech world is tech maturity of that market. For example, you probably see the Apple VR glasses, right? They're great, but they're very good for like the US market. But outside of that market, like people in, say, Africa or India, like there's no way for them to afford that, or they're technically, mature enough to buy those products, right? So you got to consider it as part of your dynamic. Economic sentiment, which is what we've been going through in the last couple of years, and then regulation. So understanding these 5 things, it's what I call the market dynamics. And, in practice, it would usually right now, because of AI, it takes you a couple of hours to basically understand this now. And then you can build on top of your understanding using validation, customer research in the real world. And you want to build this iteratively, and you're going to learn more and you update it as you go. Cool. So that's basically it. And sometimes you might hear this called like Porter's 5 forces or Pestel analysis. Very similar. They're just different frameworks of the same thinking. But I just crafted this more specifically to product rather than a business. So the business might use a similar framework to this as well. Cool. So I'm going to jump into these 2 parts because if I'm going to strip away the MVP, what's that? It's these 2 parts. So I want to share with you this market sizing. How do we do market sizing for using AI? So to think about market sizing, you always want to work big, medium, and small, right? That's how it works. And there's a framework that's called TAM, which is, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of this, total addressable market, right? TAM. But what's often not talked about is the SAM, which is the serviceable addressable market, which is the middle part. And the SOM, which is actually the serviceable obtainable market, right? And that's the framework that I want us to think about. TAM, SAM, SOM. You start big, work middle, and then you start small. And this is a good example from Airbnb, right? The TAM for Airbnb, $1.5 trillion, really big, amazing, but they will be spreading too thin if they are focused on just the travel market. Similar to what actually Mahesh touched on, OpenAI, massive market. I think they got lost along the way. While, if you look at Claude Code, they focus really heavily on the SOM, developers, productivity. That's the area, enterprise. So the SOM is basically what you want to focus on, right? The lower level, which is what Airbnb was doing before. They were targeting specific accommodation sharing, like sharing beds, right? That's where they started off. But even that is too big. You want to hone in on like a little niche product and then work your way towards the the um the SAM and the TAM, right? So you want to start big, understand whether if this market is worth the squeeze, and then hone in on the lower market and figure out where you start. So that's a general framework. And knowing this allows you to ask the right question to the AI rather than you just saying like, hey, give me the market size of this product. The AI doesn't know what to give you. So I'm going to walk you through this market dynamics prompt by sharing a different screen. And I'll walk us through how you can use the actual, like you use the prompt to really prompt the AI to help you think about how to write, how to really approach the questions properly. And there are 5 things. And you start with market first, always market size, because if the market is not big enough, there's no point. So I'm sure to share with you here. If you want to, you can follow along too. There's the prompt there in the chat. I just put it into the Notion page in the chat. Feel free to play around with it yourself while I'm talking to this. But the prompt is basically, it starts off understanding like what's the product idea, what country you're focused on, because the country matters. And then it will ask you, and it will ask the AI to do some market research, top-down research, bottom-up research, and then cross-checking, reconcile, and so on and so on. And at the end, I wanted to summarize it with like, an overall opportunity based on what the AI thinks. Because honestly, I don't have the time to read through all this stuff. I just want to get to the details of it. But asking the AI to search for this gives it time and the context and the data to think through it for me, and then I can jam with it. So let me share with you. I'll just run through with OpenAI. I'm still, in the OpenAI ecosystem, but I do feel the pain now, so I might move to Claude sometime soon. But I'll run through this prompt, right? You can do this yourself too. Feel free to grab the prompt from this page I just shared with us in the chat, and let's run through it. So yeah, it's going to ask me this question, right? What is your product idea? Does anyone have a product idea that you want to check? I want to do a quick. Anyone got any great startup ideas? AI coach, yeah, AI coach for what industry? What would you like to coach?
Education.
This is a
Yeah,
live example
education.
of a product sense interview.
Nice.
AI coach. Okay, sir, where
Yeah,
you want me to focus? AI coach
edu
for
yeah, AI coach for
PMs,
education. Maybe, yeah.
for
Maybe let's
PM
stick with like
education.
K to 12, right? Just make it more narrow.
Let's make an AI coach for AI PMs, PM who want to get
Oh,
into AI.
ooh, yes, let's do that. VM product
Then we can give you critical
managers
feedback as well, right?
who want to get into product management. Right. Awesome. Let's do what market? Just start with the US for now, right? Great. Let's do it. I did the same thing for Australia. The market's too small. That's why I'm in, that's why I'm here. There's not many PMs in Australia compared to the US. So US has got the biggest PM market, by the way. Makes perfect sense. Cool. So now I was going to run through it. Let me just zoom in so you can all see the details. So this is the thinking, right? So you always have to define, who your target customer is. The AI tool will help you do that. But what I find generally the first round, it's generally too broad and you want to go deeper. But this one's not bad, right? Aspiring PMs, switches, early career PMs, unofficial PMs, right? So that's basically sort of like the audience that I focus on. I hone in really on the unofficial PMs. Yeah, that's what my niche is. Core problem, right? Which is lack of structure, lack of guidance, feedback, all that stuff. But let's go into the numbers. It's the numbers that really help you decide what to focus on. Now, if you're a startup, $70 billion, it's like pretty big. So, it's a good company to build. But if you're like Google and Meta and all the FANG companies, that's too small. So you probably don't want to build something like this. So the product life cycle determines the areas you want to focus on and the company you're in. So if you're a startup, this is not a bad place to be, right? The TAM. But let's go a little bit lower, right? So that's total professional training, right? So you got to eventually branch out of product management, right? That's the key. And then you got to figure out, okay, well, what's the sum? What is the digital learning, right, for coaching products? That's about 12 billion. Oh, interesting. Okay, that's probably not that big anymore, right? $12 billion. I'd love to have $12 billion, but it's probably a little bit too niche now. And if you go down into like the specific sum, which is probably like product management specific learning, and you're looking at about 800 mil, right? So that is probably 8 million to 36 million potential revenue. I love to have that as a small business, but if I pitch that to say the big tech companies or even like $1 billion startup, this might be too small for them to focus on as a sum. Which opens up, the rest of us to take on as a business, and so on, right? So run through this thing, and will also help you estimate, the bottom up sizing. That's a top down view. You always want to balance out your top down understanding with the bottom up understanding because it's the view of both worlds, bottom up, top down, and if there's a discrepancy between the bottom up and the top down information, that's when you got to go deeper to the AI and figure out what's going on, why you gave me these numbers. So go through this, and what happens at the end, this prompt is designed to give you just a table output, give you a summary of it, right? What's the TAM here? What's the size? What's the sum? And it give you a score. So, but opportunity score, it's high, right? AI coaching for product managers, 8 out of 10. High opportunity market driven by career enabled coaching, and PM should prioritize clear outcomes, daily workflows, narrow ICPs. So, this is a pretty good opportunity that's pretty much untapped at the moment. So, any product idea that you have, you can run it through here. Now I can jam this with the AI and be like, building, building this for LinkedIn. Is this big enough for that company? And let's see what the AI says. $8 million. That's probably not big enough for LinkedIn, but we'll see what the thing says. And you just follow up with the answers, and eventually you can use this to pivot market. You can say, great, I don't want to do PM education. Maybe I do PM jobs and careers. Maybe I get into like other areas like academic development and do like, white labeling for universities to make courses around that, right? So, 17 billion. It can be big enough, but only if you frame it as a platform capability and not a standalone product, right? That's exactly what we're thinking about. You build a platform for any coaches rather than just PM alone. So yeah, so that's the market dynamics thing, right? And you can see now we're tapping into the next part, right? I'm going to jump back into the slide. So the next part then, once you understand the market dynamic, the market size, then you got to figure out, well, okay, who are these competitors in this market, right? That's taking the market share, because that also give you a understanding or signal of what's there. So, and once you understand the size and you've realized that, okay, this market is big enough, that the juice is worth the squeeze, and how you position it within the company context that you're in, then you jump into this part, which is like, who's the competitors, right? So competitors, I look at it across 3 ways. You as a competitor, there's a direct competitor, which is exactly the same, another AI PM coaching app. There is substitute. So these are like other type of coaching app that is not directly related to AI PM, but they can do similar things. And then they have alternatives as well, which solves the problem, but in a completely different way. So that's basically it. So, and that's the framework I want to think about. I want to pass on to you is when you understand the market size, think about the competitors, whether they're direct, indirect, or alternative, right? And this is an example of Netflix. Netflix direct competitors are Disney Plus, And then actually that's the reason why they just signed up a deal with Sony to grab the library of content, because Netflix is great with distribution. They don't have a strong library of originals, and they can see this. And then they have other indirect competitors like Premium YouTube and TikTok, right? Those are the apps that's taking time away from you. So that's the thing I wanted you to think about when you're once you understand the market. The market is big enough, great. There must be some players in that market. And that brings me to the next prompt, which is the market dynamic prompt. And I'll share that with you too.
One question that also was in the prompt, which I can also take, is that when we do this research, David, what happens is sometimes the data is just hallucinated or it just creates the market for you. And yes, we can ask it to cite sources,
Mm.
but have you find any other like way for us to like reduce that in the prompt itself, that somehow it allows us to get the right data and consume it or validate it faster as well, that it's not hallucinated?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I usually turn on like web search, and then if I don't believe in it, I would use deep search. Like I would usually do deep search as the way to overcome this. That's one way. And then another way I do use is I use for market research specific, I use Perplexity to do that because it's got the latest news and it's just really good at analyzing market sizing. For GPT, just general purpose. So I would use different tools to just, understand the data points and compare.
Yeah, I think that's a good way. Like, just run it. This is what you do in the products also. You build a product which gives you insight, and then you build a judge with the other provider. So your product is on ChatGPT, your judge is on Perplexity, bad way, but maybe your judge is Claude. And then you get two perspectives, and then whatever matches, at least you can have the lowest hanging fruit, because in that case, you're just running two queries and the cost of tokens assumingly is low. Then you can go and do that kind of checks which you need not to go perform. So that's number one. Another thing that has helped me there is that just take the prompt and write the prompt in a way that, hey, go recheck your sources for everything you are doing. Make sure you're not hallucinating. If you find any information where the source does not back the data, then remove it. So now you have two prompt sections. One is like a control prompt, one is the executor, and then you run both of them, which is like first you run the executor prompt, which is David's prompt, and then you have a controller prompt, which you run after that, saying, hey, reduce everything, and then run this prompt again and give me data again. These are the two ways of thinking about it.
That's
Go
amazing.
ahead.
Thank you, Mahesh. Yeah. So the next part is market competitors, right? So, I would love to go deeper on the competitors, but I want to get to the customer pain point section. So I'm going to share with you the competitor research. It's exactly the same as like what you do. It will ask you, you put in the prompt and you would basically ask you what type of question, what type of product idea, what type of country. You can also basically create a project on GPT as well to host all of these research, right? Which is what I've been doing. So, create a project and then you can like basically just run through all these prompts, and then you can have all the context within this project as well. So the next part you do is competitor research, right? Which I won't spend too much time on. You guys can run the prompt and play with this yourself. Yeah, it talks about direct competitor, indirect competitor, and it gives you a view of what that is. There's other prompts that you can also run as well, which I've shared in that Notion page. You can grab the other prompts. They're also important, right? So, there's tech maturity, economic sentiments for that market, regulatory, right? So understand the market sentiment is very important. Now let's jump into the meaty part then. Now you know the market you want to play in the product idea. Let's jump into the customer pain point. The pain point is the thing that you want to solve, and everybody knows this. But a lot of the time, people don't frame it differently. The pain point, there's many pain points in the world, but the way I like to frame this is think about, who your early evangelists are, who your early customers are that really love and preach your product, right? And a framework I like to share with you is this framework called Jobs to be Done. A lot of us has probably heard about this, right? Jobs to be done. It's not a new framework, but often forgotten is these two things. Customers looking to buy your product for a functional job, but also an emotional need as well. So as you're prompting the AI, you have to understand the emotional needs, why they're buying it versus the functional needs. For example, like I know Claude clearly is a better product, but I can't get away from GPT because all my context is there. Is that loss aversion feeling that I have that makes me stick to it. But it's tilting me over the edge now because of like called code work. So I might give that a go. But that's the jobs to be done. You got to think about it in two ways to find some really great product. They hire and fire your product. And then what you got to do is besides finding out the jobs to be done, and this is often again missed, you have to map out the customer journey of before they're using the product because you could be building things around that area. You don't have to solve the core product problem just yet. If it's a super competitive market, if it's super big, you should solve the before part. And then the second part is during your product, which is what they're doing. And the last part is after, right? And this is classic product sense. When someone asks you build a AI coaching product, maybe the AI coaching part is actually very crowded already. Then think about before. What did you do before? Well, maybe you build a course, right? You teach people a course, and then you can sell them the AI coaching product afterwards, right? Or maybe you can do it after. People already done the course, they already have the coach, but they don't have like an assessment product, right? Great, build that. So understanding the before, during, after is the key here. And then you map out a journey, which I'm sure a lot of experienced product managers have done this before. Map out the customer journey across the journey, and then and I'll share with you in a second. And then you figure out the metrics of success. How do you want to measure the success, right? And there's always three metrics: growth, engagement, monetization. And you map it out across the journey through the different stages. Jobs to be done. What is the growth metric that you should expect? Engagement metrics, retention metrics. You can get all this from AI now. You don't have to think too much in detail. And then what's important now, if you're building a platform product, AI, like what are some platform metrics you got to think about, right? And that is basically how you figure out the pain point. And I'll walk us through this part, which is the jobs to be done prompt. And it's going to help you figure out what's the pain point here. And afterwards, we can prompt it to give us the you can use it to give us the metrics for each of these jobs to be done. So put that there. I should turn this into like a custom GPT or like some sort of agent, but I need to take Mahesh's course first to do this. But we'll run through this and we'll ask you again, like, what's the idea? Because it's already been set up in the project, chances are it's already got the context, or maybe it doesn't. Use AI coaching for product managers in the US. And it would go through and it would understand the jobs to be done, does the research for you. Again, you can jam, right? Once you figure out that, okay, this market of AI coaching is big enough, great, let's jump in the next part. What are the needs of these users? And when this is done, hopefully I didn't use deep research, perfect. It will think through. And it will create this, what's the core functional job here? Well, it's, get better at PM to perform, get promoted, and land a stronger role. Makes perfect sense, right? That's why we all need coaching and learning, right? Subject that support it, gaps, strategy, execution, interviews, which Mahesh is doing really well, PRDs, all that stuff that you've learned in the course. So like we're nailing this from a course perspective. But emotional side, like why do people want to do it? It's because of confidence, right? Confidence, anxiety that, AI is going to disrupt my work. It probably is, so we've got to do it. Clear focused and not overwhelmed, support, right? This community that we have here. Like that's the second part that makes this product really engaging, is it addressing the emotional needs. And then you have the customer context and so on. And as you run through, I would highlight these three things. Something I didn't call out, which is the social jobs to be done as well. So you have functional, emotional, social, and we'll rank this idea of how, importance, how satisfied they are, opportunity, and then give you a good summary. And then it give you some ideas of how to execute on this. And then you grab this and you start to play with AI, build your prototypes, build your, vibe code stuff, and then off you go to test the solution for your product. Yeah, and that is basically it. So, this whole work would have taken us 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but nowadays it takes you probably a couple of hours to do. to get to the first meaningful paint. Cool. And that is it. And then you can vibe code with the AI to say, give me the growth engagement metrics. Cool. I know we're over time, so I'm going to wrap it up now. So in summary, first thing you do want to do is understand the life cycle, understand the market dynamics, pain point, and then you figure out the solution, and then you get to go to market. And yeah, and that is it for that process. And if you want to learn more, follow me on like LinkedIn. That's my thing. All the prompts are shared with us as well. You can grab that from the Notion page. And if you want any questions, yeah, reach out to Mahesh's team or myself.
Great talk, David. I saw a lot of energy, I think, in the chats, and thank you for making this real for us. With that said, I want to thank all of you for saying that back. And David, a full thank you from everybody from the bottom of our hearts to come here to share your insights and become an guide to us, become a mentor in our community. Feel free to reach out to David if you have questions, and hopefully we can have him more as we come along and continue on our journey of building right product managers who helps us bring AI to everybody in the way we think AI needs to be built.